Onto the 4th version of Street Fighter 2 now, with Super Street Fighter 2 The New Challengers, released 9 months after Hyper Fighting. This is the most drastic update to Street Fighter 2 so far. This was developed on newer hardware than the last 3 versions, on Capcom's CP System 2. This meant that we have updated graphics and an entirely redone soundtrack. Just looking at the character select screen shows that. Entirely new art and it all looks great, no more weird faces for everyone. Stages have been redone, most of them close to how they looked in World Warrior in regards to time of day, or they have a lot more detail, like the temples in the backgrounds of Sagat stage. When it comes to the redone soundtrack, it gives us my favourite versions of Guile's and Zangief's themes. If you've watched a single Guile's theme goes with everything video, the version used in those is this. But it's not just music, there's a new announcer and characters now have their own unique voices. It does mean that Guile sounds like it's on helium, but everyone else sounds great. When it comes to gameplay, things have been slowed down again since Hyper Fighting, but I don't mind too much because what they added makes up for it in my eyes. Every returning character gains something. Ryu gets the Shakunetsu Hadouken with half circle forward and punch. Ken gets a fiery Shoryuken when performing Fierce Punch. Honda gains his flying sumo press with down and medium kick while in the air. Chun-Li didn't get a new special, but the input for her Kikoken was changed to charge back forward and punch. Blanka gained backstep rolling with charge back forward and kick. Zangief gains the flying powerbomb with full circle back and kick and the atomic suplex with the same motion but up close. Guile gained more command normals. Dalsim had his Yoga teleport made easy to perform. Balrog gained the Buffalo headbutt with charge down up and punch. Vega gets the Sky High Claw with charge down up and punch. Sagat didn't get any new moves, he just had his normals changed. Finally, Bison gets the Devil Reverse with charge down up and punch. Speaking of Bison, I wish I didn't call his Chin Peter Griffin Ballsack Chin in the last video, because this game takes it to the next level. And when he's defeated, bloody hell. But that's not all, because we have our 4 titular new challengers, starting with T-Hawk, the T standing for Thunder. A Native American but from Mexico because they didn't want a quarter of the game's cast to be from the US, his homeland was stolen by Shadaloo, so he is here to beat it back out of Bison. He's even bigger than Zangief and is another grappler, meaning he has some nightmare command inputs. He has his Condor dive by pressing all 3 punch buttons while in the air, there's his Tomahawk Buster with a Z input forward and punch, and his Mexican Typhoon with full circle back and punch. Remember in part 1 of this when I said that I had Zangief's inputs down when I last played Ultra Street Fighter 2 and it's very frustrating that I can't do them now? Well, all that applies to T-Hawk even more. I had a blast doing his arcade playthrough in Ultra, getting the opponent with that command grab and everything, so being unable to pull off most of his moves here really got on my nerves. I like T-Hawk well enough, but I haven't really seen him enough for him to get into like a top 25 or something. So I hear T-Hawk is not very popular with Mexican fans, and I get it. As I said, he's very clearly Native American with all those stereotypes, but he's only listed as Mexican because Capcom didn't want 4 out of 16 characters to be from the US. Finding out a character from your favourite series is going to be from your country and it turns out to have nothing to do with it and are just listed there so as not to over-represent another, I understand why you'd be annoyed. And in the realms of Native American fighting game characters, he's not my favourite, probably around the middle of like the 5 I can think of off the top of my head. As an addition to the Street Fighter cast, it's good to get another large character and another grappler. His stage is one of the least memorable ones, it's the only one I never remember after ages not playing the game. I like his music though, but it's nowhere near the best of the newcomer themes. Next we have Fei Long. He's a film star from Hong Kong who is entering to prove himself against actual fighters and not actors. He has his Rekaken, a free hit combo by performing a quad circle forward and punch for each of the 3 attacks. Then there's his Xianqiak by doing a backwards Z input and kick. Of course, Fei Long is the Bruce Lee of the series. Film star, dressed just like him in Enter the Dragon, and he's probably the Bruce Lee clone who looks closest to the real guy. He's pretty fun and I do like him, but of the 4 big Bruce Lees in fighting games, 5 if you count Maxi I guess, he's my least favourite. Mainly because he's such a minor character compared to the others in their series, but also because I just think the others have much more charisma than him. They also have more compelling movesets. Once again, I like him, but he's outclassed. His stage is another one I tend to forget about, mainly because there's so much going on in it that my mind doesn't know what to retain. I always forget how his theme music goes, and every time I'm reminded I'm always left thinking, why do I keep forgetting this? It's pretty good. The third newcomer is DJ. He's a musician and also a kickboxer who's here because he thinks getting his head kicked in and or kicking other people's heads in will give him inspiration for a new song. He has his air slasher with charge back forward and punch, his double rolling sub art with charge back forward and kick, finally his machine gun upper with charge down up and repeatedly tapping punch. DJ's fine, but he's probably the weakest addition to the cast in Super. He's just kind of there. If I had to quickly name every character in the Street Fighter 2 series, DJ would be the one I'd forget. You can tell many at Capcom don't care much for this guy, since he doesn't show up that often. For one thing, he wasn't planned. His spot was supposed to be taken by head supper Fei Long, but a Capcom USA employee was against this and designed DJ instead. I do think this is for the best. Fei Long just not really fit for the clone treatment like Ryu is, I think. I like his stage though, love that sky in the back. His theme is good, but my least favourite of the 4 new ones. This brings us to the last newcomer and by far the most iconic, Cammy White. A member of the Task Force Delta Red, she has no memories of the past, only that she has some connection to Bison. So she enters to beat that information out of him. She has her spiral arrow with quarter circle forward and kick, her cannon spike with a Z input forward and kick, and her axial spin knuckle with half circle forward and punch. Cammy is the best addition to the cast in Super, just about everyone agrees to that. She's also the newcomer I had the most fun playing as. After disliking Sonya Blade and not caring at all for Nina Williams, it may be surprising to see me like a very similar character, but Cammy has something those two don't. She isn't boring. She has an interesting story for a game that's very light on it, and she's allowed to have expressions other than stone face and generic badass. She's probably in my top 5 characters to appear in the Street Fighter 2 series. Not content to just be the best newcomer, she also has the best stage, not just of the newcomers but also the entire game. The castle, the aurora, it looks amazing. Not just that, she also has the best music of the newcomers too. There's a reason Cam has been brought back more often than the other 3. That's the newcomers covered, now I have a further 16 arcade playthroughs. This isn't as bad actually, as I still only have 12 fights to do. And with 4 of those fixed to be the 4 bosses, it means I have a 1 in 3 chance of not having to fight one of the AI bastards. The same 4 from Hyper Fighting carry over, Yu, Ken, Guile and Blanca, but I didn't find them as bad this time. Also there's T-Hawk too, mainly for having such great range his AI can grab me through time, but even he wasn't as bad as Champion Edition Zangief. "48 playthroughs done now. Chun-Li actually gains a second ending. You can now choose between her go back to being a normal single girl ending, or you can now have her choose to remain a cop. The boss has also got new endings with unique art. Balrog becomes number 1 and enjoys the wealth being champion brings him. Vega once again gloats over his looks and continues praising his looks back at his mansion. Sagat reflects on regaining his title, his rivalry with Ryu and how much untapped potential Ryu has. He then vows to never underestimate him again. Bison still conquers the world, becoming the King of Chaos as the game asks if anyone can defeat the evil scumbag, which is letting him off a little lightly. As for the new characters, T-Hawk regains his people's land and vows to rebuild. Fei Long is approached by a director who wants to turn him into the next Bruce Lee, but he says that there will never be another Bruce Lee and instead dedicates himself to training. The game then says that there are millions who follow in Lee's footsteps, never referring to him by name though, only the Great One. DJ gets his inspiration for a new song and it becomes a huge hit. Cammy's was changed in translation. Here it says that her and Bison were lovers before she lost her memory. Ew. But in reality she learns that she was one of Bison's brainwashed assassins and a backup clone body for him to insert his soul if he ever needed to. Unable to cope with learning the truth about herself, she's cheered up by a Delta Red team who tell her that the past doesn't matter and that who she is now is what's important. Super Street Fighter 2 is a great update. Yeah, it's slowed down compared to Hyper Fighting, but those upgrades make up for it. The new moves, the new music, 4 new characters, one of which being the series' best. That's enough to make me choose this over Hyper Fighting. But we've still got one more Street Fighter 2 video to go.